you say fat chicks?
No, fact check.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah.
Hi, I'm Andy,
And I'm Roger,
and welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics.
on our search to find the middle.
We're going to give you last week's news today.
That's a slogan we should put on a t-shirt.
Stop touching her!
I am tonight announcing my candidacy.
Taylor Swift. Look, my biggest issue with marriage is that I think that it's a fundamentally flawed institution that is built on the oppression of women.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny.
Having truly rational conversations about controversial issues is risky these days.
Andy, how you doing?
Well, thank you, Roger. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I can't remember what I was doing actually, but have you ever... I was watching this show. Have you ever seen the show Dating on the Spectrum?
I don't think I've watched it, but I've seen clips of it. I think I might have seen it on like Gogglebox or something.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting show, right? Because I think that it has all the complexities of human interaction, but almost in a very naive, innocent way because of the fact that you're dealing with people who do have autism of a kind. And so in some ways, there's this real innocence and almost like a childishness to the people. And it's almost like you're watching, kids try to date, and I just found it really very interesting. But I found myself also thinking, should I be this entertained by watching this? When you have those moments to think, is it actually exploitative watching this or gathering some kind of, satisfaction from this? What do you think?
No, I think it's fair game. I think if you're on that show, you put yourself out there. That's part of probably a journey for them, right? It has some therapeutic benefits, like in terms of pushing themselves out of their, whatever their comfort zone is. I was thinking though, there's this whole push to sort of conceive of autism as a spectrum, right? As though there's just this continuum from, let's say, high emotional intelligence and, being able to kind of understand how other people are thinking and responding. And then at the other end of the spectrum, kind of some of the more extreme cases and people with difficulties relating to others. And we all sit somewhere along that spectrum.
Oh, leave me out of it, Andy.
You're in a different spectrum. But because of that, I do wonder, when it comes to some of these shows, you always find such a variety of people even within this. It's not like there's just one suite of characteristics that, people with autism have. There's usually different elements and they have it to varying degrees, right? And I was actually thinking, I was listening today to an audiobook and was talking about the Big Bang Theory and how they conceived of that. And apparently one of the co-creators of the show, he used to work in software engineering himself. And that's where a lot of the ideas came from, this idea of how really kind of geeky, nerdy people relate to each other, or how they maybe can't relate to certain people in certain ways. But I was just sort of thinking, would you say the characters within the Big Bang Theory are on the spectrum in the autism side of it? Or would you just say that's in the normal range, it's just being a geek, right?
Okay, so obviously fictionalized work, right, and a sitcom. But I would say that, Howard and Leonard and all those people are definitely not on the spectrum. They just are geeky. But the character of Sheldon is obviously on the spectrum. And I think he's made to have those idiosyncrasies to kind of bring that out and laugh in kind of the same way a monkish did for OCD, compulsion disorders and things like that. I think that's definitely the case. And I think with the spin-off, young Sheldon, of when he was a kid, is also kind of bringing out those very stereotypical, I suppose, Asperger style, high-functioning on the spectrum, hyper-intelligent but lacking social cues and skills.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not able to react because I don't watch either of those shows, Big Bang Theory, so you've gone a bit deeper than I can. But,
you brought it up.
I know. But no, it does make me wonder, though, quintessential, stereotypical nerdiness or geekiness, how much of that overlaps with some of this stuff, and then how kind of acutely do we really ring fence people who are genuinely quite distinct and do have quite unique needs, and then we call them autistic, as opposed to just, oh, we're all a little bit autistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that I totally get what you're coming from, and I take issue with this kind of pathologizing and spreading it into like popular culture. And I've spoken about that before, my disdain for the fact that, we're all trying to diagnose ourselves now, and everyone has depression and anxiety, and everyone's got this and that. I just don't think it's true. I don't think it's helpful. And I think it's the same thing. Like if you speak to someone who actually has OCD, right? They've been actually have this compulsion disorder. When they hear someone saying, "Oh, I'm a little bit OCD," how do you think that makes them feel, right? Like, you're just making fun at a certain temperament or a personality trait that you have. I literally, like, this is ruining my life dealing with this disorder, right? Like, I can't leave the house, and my hands are bleeding from washing them too much or whatever it is, right? I think that you just have to be careful sometimes with this stuff. And it raises a bigger question around, okay, see this character of Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory. He's obviously got Asperger's or he's on the spectrum or something. Should he actually be played by someone who is neurodivergent?
Come on.
But seriously, no? But isn't this where this road goes?
No, well, I think this is...
Because he's playing a caricature of it, right? Anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Just to wrap up the autism piece, though, I think maybe this is completely wrong, but the way I kind of think of autism in some ways is that it's like there are trade-offs. So what people who have certain kinds of autism or that, certain traits of that, people judge them to be autistic, to the extent that they have those traits, they then also have these other traits that the normal population, regular population doesn't have. So, the whole like Rain Man thing, right? Where they've got this like really amazing memory, like, because it's a different way the brain works, right? So it's like this hyper focus in some areas, and then their brains are less focused on things like social interactions and empathy and those kinds of things. But that's because they're hyper focused on like these details, which are just which the rest of us just don't have headspace to focus on.
Again, going back to Daddy on the Spectrum, I wouldn't put my chips in that bucket. I think that for every person on the spectrum that is closer to the Rain Man, that's hyper intelligent and focused, there's way, way more that just have this, condition that is affecting their lives, affecting their ability to integrate into society without a lot of effort. I think that, I don't know how much that happens, that just because you have, like you said, your mind is tuned to something that you've got hyper skills in. It's not like, you lose your sight and then you become like Daredevil and you can hear really well and taste. I don't think it works like that.
No, but I think actually it partially does work that way, because I think that's actually partially what neurodivergence actually is. It's like the way your brain is configured is different to other people's. So it's not that you have less brain. It's just that your brain is kind of tuned differently, and that just means that the world that the like bulk of the population exist and operate in, and that their brains are kind of configured to, is not the world that works for neurodivergent people. Whereas if the world was structured around their needs, they would operate and function quite normally. It's just that the world isn't structured according to them because they're on some lower end of the distribution. So
yeah, no, I hear you. I just don't want anyone to take out of that just because you're on the spectrum, you're hyper intelligent in a very specific way.
But they might be, I guess what we mean by like hyper intelligent, right? So they may have, and I'm sort of saying this kind of, it's been some time since I've looked at all this stuff, but I do think there are like statistical correlations between some of these things where on certain domains they perform better than the general population. So but that doesn't necessarily mean they can remember the safety standards of every single airline in the world, sort of thing, like Dustin Hoffman. So I want to pick up on something you said earlier. You said it reminds you a little bit like when young people date and they're going out. So I read an article this week, and I'm such a Swiftie, right?
Die hard.
Yeah. So Sabrina Carpenter was her, I think, support act when she toured here in Australia. And now she's just turned 25, right? and she had a birthday cake. So this news article is about a birthday cake, right? And pictured on the birthday cake, and it's got lots of candles, 25 candles, is a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And on the cake it says, "No, don't turn 25, you're so sexy."
So creepy. Almost as creepy as that laugh I just... involuntary laugh I just did.
Okay, so let's just, for anyone who doesn't get the joke or the meme or whatever, Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't date anyone under the age of 25, right? Sorry, he doesn't date anyone over the age of 25. And he hasn't done his whole life, except now he's a 49-year-old man, and he seems to have new girlfriends fairly regularly. So, yeah, I'm just interested in your thoughts on that.
You know, what's there to say, right? Like, I think that it's a tale as old as time.
Well, I love the Taylor Swift reference you weaved in there.
Just didn't sing it in a breathy enough voice. But look, I think that at the end of the day, he's a famous A-list celebrity, right? And he can do what he wants, right? I don't believe that he's exploiting or preying on, you know, on any of these women, right? Like, there's no reason to initially think that. I think a lot of these women are attracted to his celebrity, right? And obviously I guess he's still a sex symbol in some ways. You know, he's a good-looking guy and all those things, right? So I think that this is on the innocent side of that. Now, if you were to ask me whether it's functional in terms of, like, you know, a good relationship and heading towards that, then no, of course not. Like, it's not going to be a recipe for a long-lasting, fulfilling relationship with when the age gap is like that. But I mean, he's, like I said, he's a Hollywood star. There's no way to make a relationship work in that context anyway. So I wouldn't cast any judgment either way, right? So is the whole thing kind of icky and becoming more icky year on year? Absolutely. But I like, you know, these are consenting adults.
So I think 25 is probably old enough that you would say, yes, consenting adults. But I do think when you go below that, right, and you go to, let's say at least 18, right? Now, whether you say 18's maybe a bit icky, but like, at what point between 18 and 25 does it cease to be icky? But I think at some level you can say that an 18-year-old, yes, they are an adult, technically, and they are more mature than they're not 14, you know, put it that way. But
glad you cleared that up. That's a great, that should be like what the lawyer says in court. Look, she wasn't 14.
She wasn't
right?
14.
She was only 15.
Still, I think, you know, an 18-year-old has still got a lot of growing up to do, right? And, you know, they're going to be vulnerable. They're going to be impressionable. They're going to be susceptible to being groomed and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, he's not necessarily going after 18-year-olds. I actually have no idea the ages of his girlfriends, but other than through this meme. But nonetheless, I do think there's this, or it can be like it's not black and white. Oh well, they're adults, consenting adults, so it's okay, and there's nothing to see here. Like, I think certainly it's legal, right? So let's just be clear about that. But like, it doesn't mean that, you know, society can't kind of raise its eyebrows. Yeah.
It's tricky, right? Like, and I think taking Leonardo DiCaprio out of this for legal reasons, you know, we all know people growing up that, you know, relationships start from very young, and everyone knows someone that maybe was 15 and dated a 21-year-old or something, or a 19-year-old maybe, to make it less controversial. They're both teenagers. And it just depends on the period of your life. Like, no one gets upset about that in some ways, if you know what I mean.
But just to be clear on that example, a 15-year-old dating a 21-year-old or even a 19-year-old is actually against the law.
Is it?
Well, if they're doing, dating, I guess. What do we mean by that, right?
So a 15-year-old, like a schoolgirl, was dating a 19-year-old who Is it because one is
if
an
a
adult?
19-year-old has sex with a 15-year-old, the 19-year-old's going to be in trouble.
Really?
I think so. I believe so.
Statutory rape?
I'm not sure what charge, but I mean, we'll fact check this in editing, but I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Did you say fat chicks?
No, fact check.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah. That's not this segment. That's the next segment. But I'm just saying, like, okay, take the out of it though. There's nothing fundamentally, surprising about that from our youth, though, right? Like, I don't think this is like a Woody Allen situation. To see there's definitely girls at school who dated a couple years older, right?
Yeah. Okay. So let's draw this out. So I think since we're at school, I think things have changed a little bit. So I've got a couple of like other cultural touchstones here. So one would be when Hilary Duff dated, was it one of the Madden brothers? I can't remember which one, but Hilary Duff, I think, was, hang on, I'll just Google it. So Hilary Duff, we'll make sure we slander the right
You
Madden
don't do
brother.
this to me. I'm a big Duff fan.
Joel Madden. So Duff and Madden started dating in 2004 when she was 16 and he was 25, right? So that's like...
Yeah, but that's different, though, because...
That was 2004, though. Like, so
they're both in the biz, though. Like, that's different. That's like,
I don't
she's
know. I
no
think
she's no
that's-
schoolgirl. She's been...
That's a little bit weird, though, don't you think?
It's still weird, of course, but she's no schoolgirl, right? She's been... She was a star by then, right?
Well, she's 16. I mean, she's...
Yeah, and
she's
she
pretty young.
and she probably has more money than like than us at 16, right? I'm just saying the different. I'd be more impressed if there was an example of like just a normal schoolgirl, suburban schoolgirl that was dating a 25-year-old.
All right, so let's go to another cultural touchstone, and actually Leo, right? So Titanic's probably his. I reckon still Titanic would be his most famous movie.
Didn't win
Certainly
the Oscar for Titanic.
Because it won quite a few Oscars, didn't it, that show? But anyway, I actually saw a clip on social media, maybe even today. I think Disney Plus has now got Titanic, and it's the first time I've seen Titanic in a very, very long time, right? Like any footage from it. And first of all, I can just say, like, he is so young in that, like really young, like baby face. And I don't know if you remember Titanic, but he plays this character who's very sort of like a bit of a like showman. He's like the confident
Casanova.
guy. He's Casanova, who's like showing everyone else how to do it. Like he's like, there's this whole alpha male thing between him and like the character played by Billy Zane. And Billy Zane's much older at the time as an actor, I think, in the movie. And it actually doesn't work because for me now watching it, because Leonardo DiCaprio looks like a friggin' teenager.
He's like got that prepubescent like
Yeah,
boy
he does.
look.
He looks like a 14-year-old, right? And yet then you've got Billy Zane, who not necessarily, I mean, he's not necessarily like the God's gift to women or anything, but like he's a man, like so. And this whole competition between them, and then it's got him. This particular scene, it had Leonardo DiCaprio kind of showing him up, like in this kind of subtle way that didn't work for me because he didn't show any. It's like Justin Bieber trying to, take on like.
It's interesting, It's interesting to bring this up. Can I hit you with a confession first? Usher style. This is my confession. My confession is that in close to 40 years of my life, approaching 40, I have never seen Titanic. I've never watched the movie Titanic. I feel like I have because I've seen so many clips and cultural references, but I have never sat down and watched the movie.
So that's 3 hours of your life that you should be glad that you.
But see, this is
spent
the
doing
thing,
other
though,
things.
Andy. Like, I from what I understand, most people have watched Titanic multiple times.
I know, right? Yeah, it's true. That's true.
And I've never watched it. How did I escape that one?
I think Titanic, like, it was just such a cultural moment in like 1998.
Yeah, I never watched it.
And so the example I was going to bring up was Celine Dion, and like her song is, I mean, My Heart Goes On. I mean, that is so cringe, right? Like it's so over the top, and it was like the #1 song for a long time. Like it was like the highest selling single, I think. I don't know. Like, it may even still be today.
Yeah. But don't you, I think you were telling me you're almost nostalgic or craving for a time where a movie or something could be so big that every single person in the Western world knew, like, when you put your hands out and someone's behind you, and pretending to hold you behind you, like everyone knows that's from Titanic, right? And everyone knows that reference. Even someone like me who hasn't actually watched the bloody thing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it was just one of those over the top movies and moments. And when you get it, actually, in some ways, like, we joked a little bit about Taylor Swift before, but it did have that kind of
Energy, same energy.
Yeah, everyone's like, it's this flashpoint of everyone being like knowing the same thing, right?
But so that was my confession. But I wanted to talk to your point, right, about how it doesn't look right in the same way that when you look at school kind of comedies or whatever, coming of age stories back in the 90s, it doesn't look right now because the actors were like way too old, right? Like they had stubble, and they just had this weird kind of idiosyncrasies for the time they made the movies. But what I was going to say is that I do think the world has moved away from this idea of really sexualizing or this kind of this pursuit of the boy rather than the man in terms of like a sex icon. Because I think for a long, long part of history, it's been the boy, it's not been the man.
Yeah.
Actually, it's been youth. Boys were sexy. Boys were a sex symbol. They were like they were on the pedestal of what it meant to be like virile and coveted and all this kind of stuff. And as we've kind of, gone into Enlightenment values, we haven't been so comfortable with that because of the things that we're talking about now, that there are power dynamics, there's exploitation, there's all sorts of things going on. But the truth is, when you look back in towards, more ancient history and the Romans and the Greeks, it's all about the boy, man. Like, we don't want no rugged, like, bearded dude. That means you're old. We want the prepubescent, androgynous, like, too young to have STDs yet. Like, we that's what we want, right? But now we're just like, oh, we can't do that because, we know what that leads to in terms of...
Well, I'm just wondering, like, how much of that is just targeting gay men as opposed to, like, women, right?
Oh, is this your conspiracy theory that, like, gay men run the arts?
No, the Vatican.
but you know what I mean, though, right? Like, there is a historical fascination with the boy rather than the man.
Yeah, well, I mean, Greek, they have the...
Yeah, and pedestry and stuff.
Yeah, well, anyway, but back to Celine Dion, if I may. You remember that film clip, right? My Heart Will Go On. Like, you know that, right? It's
probably up there in cringy film clips with Aerosmith's Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I put them both in the same boat.
All right, okay. So picture, like, in your mind, a mental image of Celine Dion in that film clip, okay?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, how old is she?
Ooh, she's like 37.
All right. She is 30 years old
at
that time. So she's only 30, right, in that film clip. So
really?
So she looks a lot old, like, she looks a lot more mature, right?
She does.
Because you think of like 30 now, it's like someone in a bikini, like snapping like pouty Instagram shots, right? That's what I sort of picture. But she's got that like whole elegant, dress and all that,
Like
it's that
back when divas used to be classy.
Yeah. So, but the reason I brought her up was because she there was a 26-year age gap with her. I think he's dead now, but her former husband. Now, they married when she was 26, which sounds, reasonable, but they met when she was 12. So what do you think about those situations where an adult male knows a younger female or girl, and then at some point when she becomes legal, strikes up a relationship?
That's the old lay-by. Look, these things aren't straightforward, right? They're definitely not straightforward, and humans are complex. Connection is rare and complex. Now, and you just can't answer it from the outside, right? You can set some ground rules to protect the majority of people, But I just actually don't think you can, you can really judge it from the outside. Is my personal opinion. Now, would I let anything like this play out for one of my daughters? Of course not. You'd be all over it like a hawk. But people are complex, and at the end of the day, adults will do what they want. You've got a certain time with your kids, and then they become their own autonomous beings, right? So I think that, yeah, it doesn't read well on paper, but you just don't know. You really don't know. And like you do hear stories of like people in relationships at that threshold age, and they can't be together, but then they end up spending their whole lives together. Not that that's always a measure of success, but these things are complicated, and we have to actually just take a beat that up until a very recent moment in our time, in our history, we used to get like married at 12 or 11, right? Like this is a relatively new thing around like equality and consent and all these kind of things. A lot of the stuff is good, but I'm just mean like, there's like we're fighting against a whole lot of evolutionary psychology as well on both sides, I think.
So I think what you're saying there, I'd be able to get on board with that in the context of like say the 15-year-old and the 18-year-old, or the 16-year-old and the 19-year-old, or something like that, where they're actually not that far apart age-wise. So let's not overthink the age difference.
Yeah.
In fact, the issue there isn't that there's necessarily such a big age difference, but rather that one is technically above one, like below one, like a number, right? So it's not even an age difference thing, right, necessarily. But yeah, so I can get on board with that, and not to like overthink things, and not to be too like, don't think that just because we have legislation that says A, B, and C, that our instincts and our kind of drives as human beings somehow is going to like change, right? But I think what's different about some of these other examples is like there's a certain predatory element to it. Like, I mean, he was her manager, right? So there's definitely like a power imbalance. There's the whole like Harvey Weinstein thing, right? When you've got people with power like dynamic, like in it, you've got
even that though, Andy, like power dynamics. I did acknowledge power dynamics, but you can't, like, this is where the nuance comes in, which is very, very hard conversation to thread. But power dynamics are a part of human arousal and attraction. Like there is like,
yeah, but I think a 12-year-old and a grown man who's her manager, I think is, I don't think that's right. Like, and sorry, just to be clear, like I don't know actually what the trajectory of their relationship was. It's just that he knew her at 12.
Yeah,
so
I was about to say, I don't think he was a manager at 12, but that's a different story. But,
yeah, sure, okay.
I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying that the complicated thing here is that people, not even just women to men, men to women, you are attracted to a certain power dynamic at times, and that is also an element of kind of human relations, right? So it's all in the mix, right? And by no means, I just like double down on this, I'm not endorsing endorsing large age gaps. I'm just saying that it can be very complicated, and sometimes you see it the other way around, right? Just to dig myself up a little bit, is you see sometimes the teacher, the whole stereotype of like the middle-aged teacher that falls in love with the student, right? And they're on the cusp, maybe they're like 17, just leaving school, and they start their relationship inappropriately, or like there's an attraction inappropriately and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of things going on there, right? That I think are hard to establish from the outside.
We could probably both agree that two consenting adults both making a decision for themselves, like it's not like no one else has any right to say anything or interfere, or
it's
like
all
there's
about
we don't need
timing.
To moralize this.
It's
stuff,
all about timing. Like a 6-year age gap when you're in your 30s, ain't no thing. But obviously,
obviously,
no,
like
sure. At one point in time, that 6 year age gap would have been illegal.
Yeah, I do think it just though speaks to how like there has been a change though. Like, so I think if these kinds of relationships could fly back then, you have the classic kind of ones of Mick Jagger club. What was that? What was that club? Studio 54 rather, where they used to Mick Jagger would be there, and then there'd be like young girls like under 18. Like, I mean, there's this one with Drew Barrymore there as like a 12-year-old or something.
It's all a sliding scale, right? And intent, and then you end up at Epstein's Island. I can't believe I didn't bring this up before, but I've got this story when I went to see Teacher Will in Japan, and Japan is famous for having a bit of a Lolita complex in terms of their popular culture, and I must say a little bit of it kind of spilled over into an acquaintance that we met one night. And his whole thing was like, oh, he's like a bit of a pedophile, and he loves schoolgirls, and he was in his kind of late 30s, right?
Was he Japanese or an expat?
No, he was Japanese. Yeah, it was definitely a Japanese thing. Apparently, from what I hear, that it's almost like laughed that there's a pervert over there, and he's like he loves schoolgirls, and he's like yes I do, I love sniffing their underwear kind of thing, and it was almost like a little bit of it was like his funny little drunken persona, but it just obviously wouldn't fly in Western culture, right? That you liked, but we all know, going back to Leonardo DiCaprio, I think the nail in the coffin, and especially with women, like women's attitude towards you as a person. It's okay if you just by random chance of the universe, you end up with a partner that is much younger than you. But if your resume is just like you show a strong preference for always having a really big age gap to the point where it seems like you don't value women your own age, I think that's a problem. It's a problem for most people to kind of not judge you. And also, women who are older than your chosen partner, not to feel judged as well. So I think that's kind of like the problem when you show a persistent record of always preferring younger women.
When you talk about Japanese schoolgirls, you're talking about like the ones from Little Britain where they come to see Martin Clunes, right?
Sailor Moon. Well, it sounded like any schoolgirl would do.
Especially if they're two white Anglo fat dudes dressed up as.
Even better. But yeah, like I think that obviously that we don't have much room for that anymore in polite society, and that's a good thing. But yeah.
This does like raise a question for me, right? And we talked a little bit around it before, right? Where, okay, let's say, well, I kind of jokingly said, well, she's not 14, right? Like 18 is not 14. But if, let's say, 18 is within some, like, you can plausibly understand how a 30-year-old and like, you could understand it, right? How an 18-year-old and a 30-year-old, right, could get together, right? And that's understandable. Both adults, both fully developed and mature, right?
Yeah.
But at what point between 14 and 18 does that, like, because it's not like it goes from okay to being not okay just because there's some number in some legislation that says suddenly it's okay. Like it's for society and culture to decide. So at what point between 14 and 18 do you sort of, like, and the reality is there is no point. It's just, it depends on the circumstances. It depends on the person. It depends on context. Like it is what's, and I think this is what's, like, at the end of the day, like, men are like attracted to physically attractive women, right?
It's very murky waters.
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like what?
Oh, I do. Look, if the unpopular opinion, I think, well, from an academic point of view, is there is a line in the sand, and that is puberty. Like, obviously, for both men and women, there are signs that you've gone through puberty, and for women, getting periods and stuff like that, and that's what it was back in the day. Now that's not acceptable anymore, but that's, like I said, until very recent history, there are ceremonies around menstruation for that reason. But you are a woman now, right? You've gone through puberty. You are able to reproduce, and you need to be transitioned into the cohort of women rather than being a girl. And that's, there's lots of literature that says that's why getting your period is actually a traumatic thing for a lot of women in history, because it means now you have responsibilities as a woman rather than just being a girl. So that's what it was. And evolutionary, like, that makes a lot of sense, right? But in society, it's obviously much harder than that, right? Like, it's, we just came from an episode of talking that we don't even really want to give our young girls and boys social media accounts until they're 15 and smartphones, let alone being able to get in these serious relationships that can alter the course of your life in such a significant way, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the bit that's hard to nail isn't puberty. Like, the bit that's hard to nail is, but that's physiologically they might be of age, but like they might be able to bear children, for example, right? But that's not the age that our culture says is acceptable, right? And maybe, as you say, there was a time where the culture didn't care, but the culture does care now. And this is the different, like, not to get philosophical, but like someone like a Friedrich Hayek would distinguish between the concept of law and legislation, which is legislation is something you write down. It's on a piece of paper that says this is the rule, right? But it's only really the law, or the only things that constitute the law are things which the whole of society accept as the rules. And with something like what we're talking about now, I think society does accept, generally that, 16 is too young if there's an adult, and, whatever, 18 is okay. But what we're talking about is that even in some cases, 18 is not okay. When we're talking, like, if you say to me a 60-year-old and an 18-year-old, I'm going to say that's not okay. So,
what if that 6-year-old is Leonardo DiCaprio on TRT?
Well, maybe in 15 years we'll find out.
I keep getting older. They stay the same age. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
But this is why context matters, right? Because, what if it's like an Anna Nicole Smith sort of situation, and like everyone knows that she's just like waiting for the rich billionaire husband to die, and then she's like all in for the money, in which case you might go, well, all right, who's the predator here? Like, maybe we don't judge it in that way.
Who's the predator?
Well, you know what I mean? Like, it might not be, maybe it is, maybe there's a value exchange, and, it's, everyone's happy in the end kind of thing. I don't know. But, and then you've got like another dimension here, like you can procure in Australia services of the kind we're talking about from an 18-year-old at any age. So is that not even worse? Like, so this is where it gets very, very
What do you mean services?
Oh, well, like, I think you know what I'm talking about, right?
I just want you to say
it. If you want some company for the night.
Play Scrabble on the bed. Although, I don't know, you'd have an unfair advantage playing an 18-year-old on Scrabble, I think. Or would you? Maybe not anymore.
I don't think they'd be playing Scrabble. I think that's the flaw in the premise of your comment.
All right, let's leave these murky waters.
All right. So, Roger, I thought we should finish off with a bit of a check in on our friend Brendan Kavanagh, or what does he call himself? The Mr. Pionogate or something? Well, I can't remember.
I don't know. Oh, I haven't actually thought about Brendan Kavanagh for a long time, actually. And obviously we've been doing okay because the CCP haven't come after us yet. So
we're just waiting for some of the Chinese bots to come after our social.
I wish we could use the engagement. What's he up to?
So, for our listeners who haven't listened to our episode, Pionogate, episode number, I can't remember.
Episode 61, you'll find Pionogate, which covers this ordeal with Brendan Kavanagh and the intrusion of image rights by Chinese nationals.
Yes. Okay. So, this dude who plays a piano in a public train station in the UK. I think it's like, for some reason they have public pianos in train stations in the UK, and he plays it, and he's got a YouTube channel. Then these Chinese people in the background say, "Hey, we don't want you to capture our image," and it starts off in this like really overtly polite kind of request, but then it like very quickly escalates to this very sort of authoritarian sounding Chinese guy yelling out, yelling and screaming like, stop touching her, because like, I think he touches her flag or something. Anyway, it's this whole drama, and this guy we dissected it in that episode. But so what's happened in hindsight, I think that quite a lot of things have happened. Suddenly this guy's like exploded onto this Brendan Kavanagh guy. Like everyone wants to interview him because he's like the poster boy for anti-CCP propaganda kind of thing. And so now he plays the piano still, he's got his YouTube channel still, and he has like this consistent like force of Falun Gong protesters like behind him, supporting him like against China, and with these placards and all that. Anyway, so that for anyone who doesn't know, the Falun Gong, they're the ones that have been persecuted by the Communist Party in China. So like they're the Chinese people who don't like the Communist Party, like, and they're quite activist around it. So anyway, so
because
this video,
they claim they're being imprisoned and organs being
persecuted, organ harvesting, So anyway, fast forward to this most recent video, which we'll play some clips of.
All right, so anyway, Krusty's here. Can you get out of my personal space?
Mate, you're playing in a public piano.
You turned up again. Okay, but
you've turned up again as well.
Harassment.
Oh, harassment. What are you trying to bring image rights into the...
I don't want to engage with you. I want you to get out of my... Haven't you got anything better to do?
Haven't I got anything better?
I don't want to engage with you. Get out of my space. You can stand over there.
Please behave yourself. A lot of people around here. There are children around here. Do not shout. Do not make any scene.
George racist, hypocrite. He's a Howard. Yes, he is. He's a coward.
First of all, you're making libelous statements.
Libelous statements? Yeah, we'll take it to the county court.
We're not in Canadian.
We're not in court. We're not in a courtroom. Nobody cares about libel. Okay? Nobody cares about libel. I'm not causing a trouble around the well, you're being recorded for your safety as well, sir.
Am I allowed to hit him?
You can touch me in a court.
Am I allowed to hit him? Because I will hit him.
Is he allowed to hit me? Keep your hand off of me. Take your
Relax, brother, relax.
Take your hands off of me.
Right, he's being chucked out by security. It's ridiculous.
He just fucking attacked me. Call the police.
Fuck off.
No, don't fucking touch me.
Fucking wanker.
You're a fucking wanker, mate.
He's being chucked out by security and he won't leave. So I'm staying out of it.
You've been needlessly trying to eject me. You've not been nice to me, no.
I think I'm going to end the video now. The thing is that they've called for the police. Krusty refuses to leave. This is a masterclass in harassment. I think basically what I'm going to have to do is literally get out a restraining order from my solicitor.
Who's your solicitor? Can I speak with your solicitor?
You'll hear from him. This is not just on one occasion, it's on several occasions. He's literally turning up, attaching to me like a limpet and refusing to go.
So the summary of that clip, if you picked up on a few bits, there's this dude, he's a Canadian guy, I think, actually, who Brendan Kavanagh's called him Krusty, and he's basically harassing because he looks a little bit, he's got that kind of frizzy hair sort of thing. And he's basically harassing. So what were your thoughts on that exchange?
Just like how to. It is really tough, right? Like to, in a weird way, I can see what this person, this troll or this guy is trying to do, because he's trying to throw back in Brendan Kavanagh's face some of this idea of, it's his right to be there in a public place. There's very little that Brendan Kavanagh can do about it. And so he's trying to, I think, use Brendan's initial logic and defense from the CCP incursion back at him, right? So but obviously being very disruptive to his video, to his playing of the piano, to his entertainment. And it starts off like all these things as fairly mild. You know, he's just next to the piano filming him on his phone. But then you can see it starts to go downhill very rapidly. And again, the security guards are called. They probably don't know exactly how to deal with it. It's hard to really determine what to do, right? When no one's really broken the law, harassment, is a bit of a hard term to kind of put your hands around a little bit as well. But then eventually it escalates, and the scuffle that ensues. I love that line where Brendan Kavanagh just yells out, "You're showing your true colours now, Krusty," as he's like resisting arrest from these security guards. Or it's not arrest because they're not the police, I suppose. But, he's like straining and struggling against them. It's all very undignified. And yeah, just a lesson in what you're dealing with in the public, right? Like, and that I really love that line he said too. It was like, "Don't you have anything better to do?" It's like, this is the absurdity of the situation where, like, you are also just this individual who is playing piano, making YouTube videos and playing piano, and you're asking this other guy, like, "Don't you have anything better to do?" I don't know. It's what I'm really keen on understanding from your point of view and from what you've heard with this particular story is this guy linked in some way? Is he coordinated? Is he like actually some kind of weird state actor? Like what's the subtext here?
So I think to that end, it is pretty weird that you have this Canadian guy who suddenly loves the CCP, right? This is a bizarre kind of thing that someone would have this like affinity, right? And the other thing, he speaks seemingly pretty good Chinese, right? So this is a fairly intelligent, educated guy who could be doing far more productive things than what he's doing, right? It would seem. And yet he seems to be down, like he must be like a trust fund baby or something that he doesn't need to work and he can just basically be a troll, or he's on the getting paid from, he's like a United Front kind of actor.
Let's just say he's got a very lucrative WeChat account.
Yeah. some sort of money laundering stuff going on. But so actually I'm aware of a little bit of his backstory. Apparently he's like a professional provocateur in this sense. So he's, and when I say professional, I don't know if he gets paid for it, other than through the sources we've just talked about. But he has a history of doing these kinds of things. Like, so apparently he's got some connection to Julian Assange, and he was at his wedding or something.
Ooh.
So there's some weird link there. But what's most bizarre about that is some of the like historical footage, because like the internet's like sleuths have gone and like tracked him down, right? But what's most ironic about some of the historical footage is it's got him critical of China in that historical footage. So he's done this 180-degree flip, which does seem to suggest either one of two scenarios. Either he's just literally trolling for attention, either because of some pure psychological like
affinity
need for it. Yeah, or he's trying to like become like a YouTube celebrity or something, like he's filming, right?
Well, it's kind of working, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not on his channel. That's the problem. So he's not getting paid.
He's cross-casting.
So it could be one of those situations, or it could be legit. He's getting some money to do this, like from.
It is pretty suspicious, government. Right? And the fact that, like the Mandarin link and things like that, and yeah, it kind of does seem like. It does seem like, again, another propaganda arm, but you don't know. I just wonder, though, does this end in arrest?
Well, as you know from I'm the expert on UK law when it comes to filming in public and
get
harassment.
DJI Audis on the case. Just see this little drone fly over the subway.
So so for our listeners, I think I've mentioned before, I've been down this really dark rabbit warren of watching YouTube videos of these. They're called auditors, and they're just basically these guys who go around, and they're actually like all assholes, but they're kind of assholes in an endearing way because they absolutely like to on one level come off as assholes, but like it's tactical assholery. Like it's
Andy, I would call it like I wouldn't call it a dark place because I think they're assholes in the way that like Dwight Schrute is an asshole. Like he's actually like it's that style of like UK office. Like I'm a real stickler and I'm gonna like pin you, but really at the end of the day I'm still just like a friendly person talking to Pom accent, right? Like it's just it's weird, isn't it?
I think it's more that to the extent that they're winding people up, like they're doing whatever they can do to like wind people up, and whatever mixture of tactics that will achieve this, like so even to the point where they'll be nice and then they'll flip 180 degrees and not be nice because they've got to be nice enough to get to the point where they can like give rise to the situation where they can go hard. Like so there's all these weird dynamics in these videos anyway. So they do public filming. They put drones up over private property and it's all within the boundaries of the law. Sometimes the police don't quite understand, so then they challenge the police, and then some of these people get like actually detained and even arrested, and then they actually make a civil claim after it, and they get like public apologies from the police, and they really push it and nail it because then they they do a video on that, and then they get like another million views on that. So the whole thing's just absurd, and it must be a whisker away from being like outlawed, I swear.
Oh, they're definitely going to be problematic for other drone users like me because
I started watching this new guy, and I feel like really nerdy for like even now watching more than one like channel.
Oh, you've branched out.
I watch multiple channels now because I watched all these videos. I didn't have any left.
You're up and coming in the audit scene.
Yeah. So, but what this new guy does, like he's quite new. He had a bit of a like. There was one video that he did that was got a lot of views or whatever. So usually like the tactic is they want to say everything in a way that if you read the transcript of every word that was spoken, you could utterly say this person's being nice and actually polite and not being aggressive or anything like that. But then like there's subtext to it all where they're actually quite narky. So this guy has a slightly different approach. He's still nice and all of that, but he acts really dumb. Like, so he acts like, imagine like Ralph from The Simpsons going around with his drone trying to like film. So he just plays super dumb, and then what that does is then all the security guards and all the people who come and approach him, like to ask him what he's doing, they kind of then feel very comfortable in themselves, like bully him. And then once they start bullying him, he just says, no, I'm allowed to do that. No, the law says I can do it. And he just sounds a little bit thick. And it's like, oh no, you can't do that, mate. Oh, who says that? He's got this...
Traps them.
He just reels them in, and it's there's like an art to it. Anyway, sorry, I haven't answered your question, but...
when we finished the Pionogate episode, there was a genuine concern from Brendan Kavanagh that he was going to be swimming in both like some legal issues and also just kind of like targeted for, and his life would be made really difficult. And he did kind of say that he was being, he's being sued and all this different stuff and all these dragged into legal issues. So I'm kind of glad that things have balanced out for him. But I think he's in a new murky world of underbelly of bad actors now. And I think that this is the thing that, like, even if this crusty character is just a troll trying to get attention, you always have to think about it now. You're sleeping with one eye open. You're looking over your shoulder. And I do think that does have a mental cost. It must, right? Like, so, it's the fame monster. It's not all it's cracked up to be.
Would you rather be rich or famous?
Yeah, that's it, right? Like, so undoubtedly the right answer is to be rich and not famous.
All right. Well, Let's hope we don't get 1 million subscribers in the next week.
Just depends on how we get them.
All right, catch you later.
Next week, Andy goes undercover on an audit.
I'm doing a video on the company.
For what purpose?
Just for YouTube. I've got the zoom camera here and then I'm going to do my drone, get my drone up and have a look in the yard.
But we've not employed you, have we?
No.
No, so in that case we don't want you filming anything on our property.
No, I'm going to be out here on the main road.
We don't want our site being filmed for any purposes.
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be outside, but my drone will come in.
We don't want your drone over our property.
No, it's okay. You okay with a drone?
No, we're not. We don't. Why would we want a drone filming our property?
No, because it makes good viewing, because I like to put the drone footage in.
No, I don't want to show you around, no.
You sure?
I'm positive I don't
It's all good good for the company.
I'm sorry, but we've got obviously IP and various other bits like that we need to be protective of.
Yeah.
We're a security-based company, so I don't want to show you around the site, no.
Well, it's all good publicity, isn't it?
Where can you fly a sub 250 gram drone? Right, I've got to fly below 400 metres. If you're flying a drone or model aircraft that's lighter than 250 grams or CO class, you can fly closer to people than 50 metres. You can fly over them. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it says...
Now you can say what you like, mate. You're looking at old laws. These are the new ones. This is the CAA website, look. That's what I do. 400 and odd videos on YouTube. This is the third one today. As long as I take off and land in a public place, I can fly wherever I like.
Looking for something?
No, just having a look round. I just thought, make a little video, put it on YouTube.
You local, is that?
No, travelled a long way to do this. I can't see what's behind though from here. What's behind?
There's the houses on the other side.
Right, because I wanted to get some video a bit further down.
No, you can't come inside.
What about with this one? This camera?
No, you can't come inside.
Only a little one, look.
No, you can't come inside.
Just turn it on and just fly over and with the camera. I'll show you.
I know that. It's a drone.
What are you saying no for?
You cannot enter inside.
Yeah, I'll show you. It can enter. It will.
It will enter, but
Yeah.
it's a private property.
Yeah, I'm not on it. I'm outside.
But this thing is going inside, isn't it?
Oh, you own the airspace as well?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Be silly. You can't buy airspace, my friend. I'll show you that. It will
I know
go over.
that. I know
Oh, so
that.
it can go over? Yeah?
No, you can't go inside.
Make your mind up. The drone will go over. I'll show you right now.
What about what?
What about human act rights?
Human what?
Human act rights.
I don't know what you're saying.
Have you not heard about human act rights?
What about it?
For example, right to privacy.
Haven't you heard that there's no such thing as privacy in a public place?
I suspect you've committed an offence, so I need your name, your date of birth and your address. In order to
I'm not giving them
contact
to you.
Well, we're trying to find out what the story is. We're not
Well, that's fine. I'll stand.
I'll
stand here all day until you find
I
out.
haven't got time for that. I haven't got time for that.
Well, that's not my problem.
But what's got the right to ask you for your name and your date of birth? And it's an offence not to give it.
No, it's not. It's only an offence if I refuse to give my name and address, if I've been arrested or I'm being detained.
Well, you're not being any of those.
Right, thank you. So I don't have to give my details.
You realise that if you don't give me the details, I'm going to have to arrest you.
That's all right. Then I'll sue you.
Details. You're refusing your details. You have committed an offence in my eyes. So I need your details so I can deal with you without taking you to custody. If you refuse those details, I'm going to have to arrest you. Okay.
And what are you going to arrest me for?
For breach of that.
For breach of that?
For breach of the flying. Yeah.
What flying rule's that? Explain to me. Give me the details. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Can I see your SIA license?
Yeah.
SIA license?
Why you want my license? What for?
Because you started playing games with me.
I'm not. It's not a game.
Have you got one? Have you got one?
I have one.
Where? Where is it?
I don't have to show you.
Does it have to be on display?
Yeah.
I can't see it.
Who are you? Are you from SIA?
Does the SIA license have to be on display?
Yeah, I know that.
Have you got it on display?
No, I don't have.
So you're breaking the law?
Yeah, I know that.
I'm not breaking the law.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah, I thought so.
Carry on.
I thought so. Thank you very much.